Welcome to the Korea Pro Podcast, your weekly guide to understanding the most pressing and complicated developments shaping South Korea. We're your hosts, Jungmin Kim,
John Lei,
and Junha Park of Korea Pro.
Go beyond headlines as we explain not just what happened, but also what really matters and why it matters.
If you monitor South Korea for work or just trying to keep up, you're in the right place.
This is the Korea Pro Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Korea Pro Podcast. It is now Thursday, July 10th. It is a little bit before 5 p.m.
And let's start with the U.S.-South Korea relations update from this week. Apparently, there were a bunch of letters sent to a lot of partners and allies from the U.S.
Yep.
What was the letter?
They were all copy-pasted, literally.
Literally.
The only things that would change were the names of the people that they were sent to. And Lee Jae-myung received a letter as well as the Japanese Prime Minister. And the letter said, because of our trade relations that have been unfair for decades. And I don't think that was a Trump impression at all. I don't know what I was doing there. But yeah, anyway, the long story short, South Korea got 25% reciprocal tariffs. And that doesn't include all the sectoral tariffs that South Korea has been hit with. That's including automobiles, steel. Potentially semiconductors are coming soon. But yeah, depending on what kind of tariffs that we're looking at 25 to 50% tariffs for South Korean imports. 25
to 50, it's like a very big range though, isn't it?
Exactly. So even if Lee Jae-myung had been successful in negotiating away this 25% reciprocal tariff rate, there would have still been a 50% tariff rate on steel and aluminums, and which is crippling for South Korea's industries. And so regarding this ROK-US alliance and regarding the Chorus FTA, it's all kaput.
So what were the initial response from South Korea this week?
The initial response was, oh dear. But, it's Donald Trump said these tariffs are going to hit on August 1st. And so there's still some time left. And so the official response is we still have 3 weeks left. We are going to double down on negotiations, try to meet with Trump. There's been no word from the presidential office that there is some sort of a meeting with Trump going on. There was just a news report that came out, I want to say maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, that there might be a trilateral meeting between the U.S., South Korea, and Japan during the ASEAN Regional Forum meeting that's coming up. But again, nothing's confirmed. And to be honest, even if they do meet, we should all expect very little out of this. When it comes to these tariffs, they are not sort of a negotiations for Donald Trump. They are the end goal. Donald Trump has made a lot of pledges to his base, and whether or not it makes economic sense, it is the sort of thing that really riles up the MAGA voters. And so, sure, this might not be final. As far as Donald Trump is concerned, nothing is ever final. But this is the goal in itself. And so, although the talks might keep on going because we need to perpetuate this political show, we should not expect anything to really improve for South Korea.
And at this point, it sounds like it's something of a political inertia to imagine or expect something massive of a negotiation to come out from a summit or like a leader level meeting, like one meeting and one negotiation, and that's it. That's not the case anymore, isn't it?
It's certainly not the case. Now, in the first Donald Trump term, it was sort of the thing that was expected because we also what Donald Trump tried to do with Kim Jong-un, meet leader to leader and try to have that handshake of a deal. But he's not operating like that anymore.
Yeah, and also he talked to Iran in his first term, and look what happened.
I believe some of those Iranians are no longer with us.
That is true.
And so, regarding all of this talks right now, we have to keep in mind that so although the public-facing sort of response from South Korea is that negotiations have to be ongoing, I'm sure behind closed doors there's a lot of screaming going on right now because, if we compare this to other countries, if we compare, let's say, China and Taiwan, no matter how tense relations got between Beijing and Taipei, the Chinese government never went to the Taiwanese president and said, move all of your industries to the mainland or else we'll tariff the hell out of you. But, the U.S. and South Korea are allies and have a free trade agreement, but basically Donald Trump is trying to hollow out South Korea. So we have a lot of fun time to look forward to when dealing with our ally.
Right, I knew you would make that comparison. But yeah, it is sort of a new era sort of look right now. And speaking of leader level summits, Lee Sung-rak, the national security advisor, earlier did a briefing at 7:40 p.m.
last night,
and said that He asked Rubio for a early summit with Trump, but it did sound like it was a non-announcement announcement. What did he exactly say?
Yeah, so the South Korean National Security Advisor Lee Sung-lak, he mentioned yesterday and he announced that Seoul has proposed that early summit with the United States.
So the proposal part was the announcement, not that it's happening.
No. And there was some sort of code of agreement between him and Rubio, some sort of konggam, which was...
Sense of agreement,
cooperation on some sort of an issue where it concerned defense cost sharing, upping South Korea's defense share, also
by $10 billion because we're living in an Austin Powers universe.
Sure. And also the trade agreement that we just mentioned, tariffs. But again, it wasn't really something new coming onto the surface, especially with Lee Sung-lak going only for 2-3 day trip to the United States to meet only with Rubio. So it's not something that actually you can feasibly or diplomatically achieve within 3 days, some sort of an agreement to host a summit between, even if you are an ally that's being treated in such fashion. So we
More
still
like a colony.
So we still need to see what comes out of it.
And also, it did look like the Lee Sung-lak briefing was primarily aimed at the public, South Korean public, to reassure that they are doing something, that they are proposing something, not that there are any actual real progress. And just really briefly back to the tariff issue, the deadline was supposed to be yesterday, right, Wednesday, but now it's August 1. So there is more time, but does that matter?
Well, like I said, the official response is we still have 3 weeks to negotiate. But again, this is what Donald Trump wants. He wants the drama. He wants the negotiations. He wants to extract concessions. In a lot of ways, it's like what North Korea does with its nuclear negotiations.
Oh, look at you provoking a lot of audience today.
Am I wrong?
No, but go on.
And so this is what we have to expect. So yes, there's going to be a lot of these pronouncements and proposals for meetings and talks, but
right. And just very quickly, there was a mention of there was a reference to transshipped goods, and you mentioned in your executive briefing that it will introduce further operational risk. Can you explain that a little bit?
Okay, so when it comes to trade, there are 2 definitions of transshipments. Now, in the normal trade sort of way, where people talk about punishing transshipments, it's what some countries do to avoid tariffs. Like, for example, China might export goods to South Korea and then disguise those goods as South Korean and then export it to the United States to avoid whatever tariffs that China was getting. That's the kind of transshipment that is usually punished. But in some instances, what can sometimes happen is that South Korea might have manufactured, let's say, an automobile, and then ship that vehicle over to, say, Mexico, where there is a South Korean facility so that they can sell it to the United States. So these are the 2 different kinds of transshipments. But of course, Donald Trump did not define what he meant by transshipment. And the last time I checked, there was no official executive order or anything from the United States government that actually completely verified what that word meant. And so if there is a lack of definition as to these particular legal words, then what a lot of companies are going to do is they're going to err on the side of caution, especially when dealing with someone with something like the Trump administration, which can just change the rules as they go along. It's better to be cautious. But if that is not what Donald Trump meant, and all of these businesses err on the side of caution, then what's going to happen is that businesses are just going to be ending up losing money for no good reason.
And while that is happening, Samsung this week, it showed a profit plunge in the second quarter.
Yeah. The profit plunge was disappointing, to say the least. It was even lower than the first quarter. Now, if we are only looking at the semiconductor side of the business, and Samsung said in its quarterly earnings that a lot of it was because of semiconductors and it was because of low demand. But really, a lot of the blame goes back to Samsung, because if we look at TSMC's earnings reports, their profit margins jumped.
Yeah.
And if we look at SK Hynix's profit margins, they also jumped.
Right. It's not just about the geopolitical risks.
It's Samsung also dropping the ball. Now, if you're only looking at semiconductors, we can say, well, does it really matter? Because, SK Hynix is also building semiconductors, these HBM3E chips, which are used for AI. And so how does that really impact South Korea's overall national semiconductor role? And it does significantly impact it. And that's because, yes, if you're looking at only the HBM chips, SK Hynix is doing fine. But if you look at the entire roles of Samsung and SK Hynix cannot overtake Samsung. Samsung is just so much larger. But when Samsung starts to lose money like this from semiconductors, it bleeds into other aspects of its businesses. And once that happens, it will impact not just the export of chips, but also the entire rest of the GDP, as well as revenue collections. This is just not a good sign for South Korea at all.
And speaking of geopolitical risks, let's just briefly touch on the China Victory Day invitation, like how it's going. Like the South Korean government did not really follow up with anything after the initial announcement, right?
Yeah, so there's not been much talk from either the ROK presidential office or Beijing per se on what the invitation actually entailed, what South Korea's presidential office is looking at towards the invitation. So it's still, speculative at this point of whether or not Lee is going to go. But as we discussed last week in last week's podcast, the main consensus amongst everyone is that Lee Jae-myung's current wave is set not to go, since it's a no-win strategy either way.
Were there any experts that you spoke to writing your analysis that actually said that it might be a win for Lee Jae-myung to go?
Yeah, well, John Delury, for example,
who will be our Seoul circuit speaker very soon.
Yeah, he did suggest that it could, if framed in a very particular, very intelligent way, then it could come out as a very pragmatic win.
It's a very big if.
For the Lee Jae-myung administration.
Right.
Of course, there was also another expert from Kaida, Mr. Chun Jae-woo, who also suggested the same, that if you do frame it in a particular way, suggesting...
You mean for the public?
For the public, for the general public. They were mostly looking at sort of the domestic politics issue, not the international angle.
I see.
So if we look at that from that perspective, then yes, okay, it could be a win. But again, it is a big if.
And before we move on to more domestic economic issue to wrap up today's podcast episode, there was this accusation that the Yoon administration did a illegal military aid to Ukraine under a lease deal?
Okay, so this was an accusation that was made by the minor opposition Rebuilding Korea Party. And
so grain of salt.
Grain of salt. Now, we do have to wait for this for these accusations to be verified. But at least right now, the allegation was that about $30 million worth of South Korean equipment was handed over to Ukraine. Now,
but how's that illegal?
Well, that's the whole point of it. According to the shipment of these $30 million goods, apparently what the Ministry of National Defense said was these are equipments that even the military is lacking at the moment.
The classic one.
Yeah. But then there's also another one, which is that if this was just to lease these goods, there should have been a clause that said that these items, that this equipment should be returned. But apparently, according to what this allegation is saying right now, is that it nixed that part of the clause. And so once Ukraine actually has that equipment, it doesn't have to return it. And so the accusation is that this violates all kinds of laws, all kinds of domestic South Korean laws. And what this can potentially do is that it might, sure, Yoon is already in jail as of today, but this can also implicate other members of his administration. But sure, it's all the past administration. Why do we really care? What really matters is what goes forward. Now, we're not sure if President Lee Jae-myung was ever going to be agreeable to sending any further equipment to Ukraine. But even if he, in his heart of hearts, actually wanted to do that, if this allegation turns out to be true, and if this gains enough, shall we say, noise in the country...
Political weight,
political weight, thank you. Then what could end up happening is that even if Lee Jae-myung wanted to do it, he would not be able to even provide non-lethal aid to Ukraine.
Because of this precedent.
Because of this precedent, exactly. That's what's going on that front right now.
I see. So it's something to keep an eye on whether or not we see more evidence that this was actually illegal, if the procedures were met, and so on and so forth. And lastly, Bank of Korea, was this today?
It was today. The Bank of Korea just announced that they are going to maintain interest rates.
It's 2.5.
2.5%, yes.
Right. This was expected, right?
Kind of, sort of. What the Bank of Korea said was that the inflation had somewhat cooled. If we look at all the different kinds of inflation rates, they are at around the 2% range, which is within the inflation target range. And so if the inflation target is cooling, then usually the central bank will say, okay, let's have a bit more monetary loosening and reduce the interest rates just a little bit. But what happened just recently was that just days ago, we saw this massive supplementary budget, about $23 billion worth of supplementary budget that was just passed. And also within Seoul, within these key districts, we've seen real estate prices going up. And of course, Trump tariffs. And because of all of these external headwinds that are going on, along with a fiscal loosening, the central bank was saying that, okay, this is not the time to reduce interest rates, because if we do, all this will do is just exacerbate the real estate market even more.
And household debt, basically.
And household debt, exactly.
Right? Okay, so that's that. I actually forgot to mention there was defense-related meetings this week in Seoul as well.
Yeah, so it's still going on. There will be a larger trilateral meeting between the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the three countries happening tomorrow.
Which three?
ROK, US, and Japan, where they're reportedly expected to announce an agreement to push forward with the trilateral Freedom Edge drills this September.
How much are we going to have to pay for it now?
Well, we'll wait and see. And the bilateral...
Freedom is not free, John.
Of course.
Yeah.
Indeed. And
$10 billion.
Yeah, for sure.
And Lee Jae-myung would also have his first NSC meeting, the National Security Council meeting today. The presidential office did say it was a closed-door session, and there will be no briefings on what Lee's remarks were or any of the participants' remarks were. So it does come after, as we mentioned, Wee Sung-lak's announcement of sort of this package announcement of security and trade, and it will likely be focused on that trade and also defense cost sharing. So we'll have to look forward to what comes out of that.
I like to imagine that the president was just screaming and dropping F-bombs, but that's a romantic in me.
Yeah.
Looking to stay informed about South Korea's fast evolving political, business and cultural landscape? Join us on Korea Pro, the go-to resource for in-depth analysis expertly curated by top-tier professionals. And now you can pick the membership level that best suits your needs, thanks to our new subscription packages. Starting at just $199 annually, you can access daily analysis and our weekly podcast. Or try our premium membership package, which offers additional perks such as executive briefings, monthly reports and forecasts, networking receptions and event opportunities, as well as much, much more. To find the best fit for you, just head to signup.koreapro.org and become a member today.
Week ahead, next week is confirmation hearing super week. We have multiple minister candidates going to the National Assembly for the hearings. And the hearings that we will most closely monitor would be the defense minister nominee, the unification minister nominee for the NK News side, and also foreign minister nominee. Are there any particular candidates or that are going through any scandals or whatnot?
Yeah, so we've got the gender minister, Kang Seon-woo, who's been, there's allegations from, of course, the main opposition People Power Party on how many secretaries that she's changed over the past 5 years. Also,
why is that a controversy?
So apparently 46 changes have been made to her secretariat since the start of her sort of parliamentary term. Lee Jin-suk, also the current education minister nominee, she's also been under scrutiny from the main opposition People Power Party again for some alleged forging within her educational documents, as well as her...
For education minister nominee?
Yes.
I see.
And also there's a couple of sort of personal scandals going on for every single minister, as we see in every single
pretty usual
confirmation hearing
Sons,
period.
Daughters, spouses, mother-in-law, father-in-law, land.
And they will all get confirmed.
Yeah. And so most of them are next week, but others are continuing in the following week as well. Also, next week, we have Constitution Day on Thursday. It's usually the day when they do a big celebration at the National Assembly. I'm not sure what kind of celebration that they're planning on. Initially, I saw some exclusives saying Tak Hyun-min, who used to be the mastermind of all the symmetry optics during 2018, was suggesting something like the right-wing singer Kim Hoong-guk singing the Gwangju Democratic Movement song or something for harmony, like social harmony sort of optics. I'm not sure what they actually landed on, but we'll see.
That'll be great.
And if you'd like to know more, all of this information will be sent to you via the Week Ahead newsletter into your email inbox by 2 p.m. on Monday. So if you'd like to know more, please subscribe. Have a good weekend, everyone.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We'll brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why it matters, delivered to your inbox every morning.
If you want to stay ahead of the curve, sign up for Korea Pro to get a full package of insights, from daily expert analysis to profiles, month in review, week ahead, and more.
And until next time, I'm Jungmin Kim.
I'm Junho Park.
And I'm John Lee, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.